another edition of Sit Down with Ed Brown. As promised, you saw it a minute ago on Facebook Live. Of course, you guys probably saw it a few days ago, but we just did it a minute ago. But I am sitting here next to Mr. Bob Gimlin. Are you kidding me? Bob, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, good. Thank you, Ed.
Man,
thank you for being here. I haven't seen you for a while, but it's always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And we're just going to get together and get these questions answered straightforward, and so that nobody's got any foolish questions that they're coming up with. People are assuming things, and a lot of it's incorrect. So we're going to straighten it all out right here this evening.
That's right. And Bob, I have to say, and I want you, the viewer, I want you guys to know this as well. It actually pains me to have to ask questions like this, and I want you to know beforehand, most of these answers I already know the answers to. I think I already know the answers to. So I'm only asking because in the community, people on both camps love Bob Gimlin. Okay, it's not. I don't think it's a matter of one side trying to take over the other side or whatever. I think everybody has Bob Gimlin's best interest at heart.
I think so. Yeah, I think so too, Ed.
It's just a matter of, well, I know what's best for Bob. I know what's best for Bob. No, I know what's best for Bob. I think Bob knows what's best for Bob.
I do. I certainly do. There's no question about it.
Well, Bob, let's get started.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
I've written down some questions here.
Yes.
And I'm going to try to get through a few of these anyway. I don't want to ask a whole bunch of questions on this, but I do want to cover these because I want you, not me. I don't want people out there on both sides saying, well, I know this, I know that, because they generally don't. Right?
No, Ed, this is very important that we do this. Very important.
And I appreciate you letting me ask these questions, right?
Well, I'm glad to do it. I'm just happy to do it, Ed. Real pleased.
Bob, I'm going to ask, the first question I'm going to ask is this, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's very important, all right?
Yes, sir.
And again, I know the answer to this question, but I want you to tell the people the answer to this question, okay?
Okay.
Bob, are you of sound mind and body? Are you aware of what's going on around you? Do you know who's doing what and who's in control? Do you know what's going on?
Yes, sir. I know what's going on, and I'm sound of mind and body, and I've got a great memory, and I got a great mind, folks. I inherited that from my mother.
Good.
She knew things about when she was my age. She could tell you grandkids' birth date and how much they weighed and their names, and she had such an incredible mind, and I was lucky enough to inherit that from her.
Sure. Okay, well, good. Now we know Bob is of sound mind and body. He knows what's best for Bob. That's the important thing.
Yes,
okay?
sir, I do. Very much so.
Okay, with that being said,
yes,
I'm going to go through here. I'm probably going to ask. I've got 15 questions written down here, but I'm probably only going to ask a few just so we can move forward. But let's put this in the past.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Bob, on the 50th anniversary, not memorial. Bob's still with us. At the 50th anniversary in Willow Creek, right? Were you permitted to speak?
I was committed to, but I wasn't allowed to. I was on the schedule to speak right after Dr. Jeff Melgren did his presentation, and I was scheduled on the schedule to speak. Well, I was not allowed to. They just kept on going. They just act like I wasn't supposed to speak, and they started the auction again, and I kept waiting to see what was going to happen. And I went over and talked to Dr. Jeff Melgren for a little while, and told him what a great presentation he did, which he always does. And then they just act like that I wasn't even in the building. And I went over and sat down and waited, and I thought, well, what's going to happen next?
Right. Well, that was a shame.
Well, I thought so. I had quite a few people come up and talk to me about it. Said, we can't believe, Bob, that you didn't get up and speak. I said, well, nobody even said anything about me getting up and speaking, and then I was just ignored altogether, like I wasn't even there. And so, yes, I was upset because people had said, well, Bob, we're waiting to hear you speak. And I said, okay, that's great, I wasn't going to speak for a long time anyway. First thing I was going to do is Mark and Tom Yemron what a good job they were doing there until that time, and so I thought, well, I'm not even allowed to tell them appreciate what they're doing. So, in my opinion, it was more their loss than mine because I speak at quite a few different places, and I've been to Ohio at Mark's before and been able to speak there and been special guest and different things and appreciated it a lot. But then what went on down there was shameful.
Right. And well, I don't disagree with you. I think you're right.
Thank you.
So next question. So at these events, okay, now you go to a lot of conferences, you meet a lot of people, and
Yeah.
everybody loves Bob. I keep saying that, but it's true. Everybody loves Bob. So at these events, can just anyone come up to you without being charged or stopped or anything else? Can they just come up to you and talk to you? Are you free to do that?
Yes, I'm free to do that. I never charge anybody to come up and talk to me or sign whatever piece of paper they bring to me. If it's a program even, or whatever, or if they buy a picture from Tom Yamron or myself at the table, I sign them, and there's no charge. There is no charge. I never charge anybody for any signatures, even if I put it on their T-shirt. Some people want it on their T-shirt with them in the T-shirt even, and that's okay too. I've had guys come up and big old bicep and say, "Bob, sign your name right up my arm," and I do that, and we kind of chuckle about it, and he'll say, "Well, I'm going to go get it tattooed." Well, okay. So no, folks, I don't charge anything for signatures. And if they get a DVD, I'll sign them. If they buy a DVD, whether they want it signed or not, I mean, I'll sign it, but I never say, "Well, no, I won't sign that." I just pick it up and sign it.
Sure.
Matter of fact is, folks, maybe I shouldn't even say this, but I'm going to say it because Mark DeWark walked up and asked me to sign a couple of things for him after all this other stuff went on, and I signed them for him, and he walked away.
Well, that just shows you what kind of guy you are, Bob. I mean, I've met Mark. Mark's always been nice to me. I have no issues with Mark. I have no issues with Tom personally. I think they're great guys, and I have no issue with Russ. I've met Russ. Russ and I, obviously, Russ and I know each other.
Yeah.
And I don't have any issues with any of them. I wish that all this would just go away.
Go away. See, Mark's treated me really nicely over the years, and I think a lot of Mark even yet. I just didn't understand. And Tom was like part of my family. Tom Yemron was, and I'll tell you what. For Tom to do those things, I couldn't understand it. I just could not figure out what was going through Tom's mind, and so I probably will never know because he's not even speaking to me now. But that's okay too because I love Tom. I love Mark. Hey, those guys have always, and Tom's did some incredible things for me over the years, and I appreciate every bit of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel the same way. I mean, Tom, I hope you get better. Hope you're feeling better.
Oh, I do too. I pray for Tom every night.
Good. All right. The next question is, they say that Russ Acord, they say that he takes all the money from your DVDs. Is that true?
Russ doesn't take any of the money from the DVDs. Russ don't take the money, folks. Hey, Russ has put more money into this than he's ever getting out of it, let me tell you.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay, are you happy with the current status of your manager, or do you feel forced into Russ being your manager? I mean, how do you feel? What's your relationship with Russ, I guess is what I'm asking.
Okay, thank you, Ed, for that. Russ and I are really close, and I'm more than happy with him managing my stuff because he takes care of it, and Russ has got all modern stuff, and I'm just I'm out there working with horses and different things. Russ puts his time into it and his effort into it to making sure that we've got transportation and agreeing to go to the different conferences, like this one back in Nebraska. I'm excited to go. Russ coordinated that trip with Harriet, and I'm just waiting to get back there, because that little Harriet is such a neat person, and even I know a couple of the other ladies that's involved in it. I've met them over other times other than down Willow Creek, but Russ doesn't take anything from me. He gives more to me than anybody else has ever give to me.
Well, that's good, and I want to say, Bob, thank you for answering those questions, because I think those are the important questions right now. When people talk right now in social media, when people talk about Bob Gimlin, while they love Bob Gimlin, there's bickering going on over what's best for Bob, and I'm like, by God, let's sit down. And I'm not gonna lie, I had to get a hold of Russ to set up this interview.
Yes.
He contacted you, and from my understanding, and in fact, this isn't even one of my questions, but I'm gonna ask. I talk to Russ occasionally, and he said that every email you get, every inquiry you get to go speak somewhere or to talk to somebody, he reads every one of those to you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. Very true. There's nothing secret between Russ and me, and people that say things when they don't know what's going on, that Russ has taken advantage of me. They started that down there. Tom Yamaron started that. Save Bob. Well, I didn't even know what the heck they were talking about until when I heard about it, and then they kind of recruited a bunch of people to say Save Bob, and I thought, what in the world? Why didn't they ask me about it instead of going off on their own and coming up with a group of people saying Save Bob? Bob didn't need no saving.
I would say Save Bob. Oh, you mean from Russ?
From Russell.
Oh.
They thought Russell was was telling me what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, and that is not true. There's only been one time when I was going to get up and visit with some people, and there was people coming to the table to buy stuff, and they wanted my signature on it. So Russ asked me if I'd come and sit at the table. That's it. And he didn't say, hey Bob, get over here and sit at the table. He said, hey, there's people here who would like to have you come over here. And Russ wasn't saying, no, you got to do that.
Right.
And of course, I like people, and I want to do whatever I can for them. And so that's the way it was. And then they had enough nerve to say that I had two bodyguards with me, and that was Gary and Jeff. And they were just friends. Gary was doing some filming, and Jeff was there as a personal friend.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, people jumped to conclusions way too fast.
Well, you're exactly right, and in fact, that's kind of why we're having this conversation right now, is because people jump to conclusions. Now, again, my view on this entire thing the entire time has been this.
Yeah.
And I would tell either side the same thing. It doesn't matter,
Well, me too. Yeah.
But the point was, Bob knows what's best for Bob.
Absolutely.
I don't feel like Bob's being tricked. In fact, I called Russ, and he's probably going. Russ, when you see this, you're probably going to laugh at me when I say this. I call Russ kind of like your pit bull. You know what I mean? He's he's very aggressive.
Well, yes, he is.
And that's good.
Well,
I think that's good.
It's good for me.
That's right.
Really good for me, because Russ doesn't take any static from stuff,
Right.
Russ is that kind of person. He's always been that way as far as I know, and being in special services and stuff in the military, I imagine Russ was an excellent man in his field in the military. I didn't know that, but being his background and everything tells
Sure.
me that he was very good at his job.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, and this is probably another thing Russ is going to laugh about, but the truth is Russ and I have had some very heated discussions in the past, right? I mean, very heated. One time, well, I won't say it, but if I was close to him, he probably would have punched me in the mouth. I'll tell you that. And,
he's not a guy. I mean, in my opinion about Russ, you'd have to push him hard to get a swing out of him.
Yeah.
But then, if you do, you better look out.
Right.
You better stand by to stand by.
I think you're right. And to Russ's credit, my point of that wasn't to say, yeah, Russ and I don't get along. The point of that was, Russ says to me at the end, he says, and this is what he said. He said, so I'm giving Russ a little credit here, but he said, Ed, we're like family. Family fight. And when you're done fighting, you hug and you make up and you go on. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, see, that's the way I believe in doing things, Ed.
Sure.
If you've got a difference, and get it over with and hug and say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand what was going on, and we're going to go on with life.
Absolutely.
Because we're human beings and we're supposed to love each other.
Right. Well, Bob, that's a great segue into the rest of the interview, because I'm done with the hard stuff. Now it's going to be fun. Are you ready for some fun questions?
Oh, yeah, always.
All right.
Always, Ed.
Bob, I am totally amazed that I heard, in fact, you said it a minute ago, but you're still working with horses?
Oh, yeah. I teach harnessing and driving to a group of people, and quite a few youth are involved. And so I don't want any accidents, so I teach them from the bottom up. And safety is my goal. So I teach kids from 8 to 20. And then I've got probably 15 of those, and I've got 30 or 40 adults that are learning to harness and drive under my instructions at a place called the Agriculture Museum in Union Gap. And I have a couple of partners that work with me, a guy named George Nix and another guy named Alan Gio. And they're coming along really well. Alan's an excellent driver. George is coming along good, because at my age, folks, I want to settle down in about 10 to 12 years. About the time I turn 100, I want to slow down enough that my wife and I can do some traveling. And so therefore, I want to teach these as much as I can in a short time that I've got. And folks, I don't know if you know much about harnessing and driving, but saddling a horse and riding to me is pretty simple. And I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you how I feel. I can take a horse that hasn't had a saddle on it. In 3 days, I can be riding it fairly decent, teaching it things. I can't in 30 days take a horse from driving it and know that it's safe enough to go out among other folks and among the different things that horses shy from. You folks realize horses are prey animals. So basically, human beings are their enemy. And you hook a team of them, or just, we'll say one. You hook one horse up to a piece of equipment that's got wheels on it. And whether it's got brakes or doesn't have brakes is just not even, well, it's important, very important. But if that horse spooks and runs, you're going to have a hard time controlling it unless you know what to do. And then you hook two of them up, and then you've got double trouble if you don't understand how to slow them down or what to, because horses drive from their hindquarters. Of course, most of you know that. And if you can get the hindquarters out of gear, then you can get some control over them. But I teach all of the things that does that to get them to move one way or the other. And not that I know everything, but I've been harnessing horses for right at 80 years. I started as a very young age. My brother and I worked the horses in the fields, and we couldn't even put the harnesses on. We were too little, so it took both of us to put the harnesses on, one to push it up and the other to pull it down on the other side. And I'm not talking about the great big draft horses. I'm talking about medium-sized draft horses. But then I've had people with the giant draft horses, 2,500 pounds or so, have a runaway, and two strong men, one on each line, trying to stop them. You can't stop two big 2,500 pound horses by just pulling straight back on them. So I teach all of that to keep safety, safety. And if you're in a parade or you get all kinds of unforeseen things.
Sure.
Drums going off, and maybe the cannon going off.
Fireworks,
or or somebody dragging something.
Right.
Or there's so many different variables for teaching horses to harness and drive safely, so it's safe for the people that are watching on the sidelines, safe for the horse, and safe for the driver. And Safety is what I go for the most. It has to be that way.
You know, it's funny because that reminds me of a real quick story, and I'm going to make this quick because I don't generally like talking too much during my interviews, but I got to tell the story because of what you just said. But
Yeah.
I went horseback riding one time, right, a while back, and I wish I had known you beforehand because I would like to have known this. And, you know, you see the Westerns, and when they stop the horse, they pull back, you know. So I'm riding, and we're going down a hill, and the horse kind of started going a little faster than I was prepared for. So I pulled back, and I didn't know it, but I raised his head up. So he couldn't see, and he ran into the horse in front of him.
Absolutely.
And almost got hurt. You know, it was so things like that is actually important. And it's just a funny story that you've reminded me of. Just
no, it's very important, Ed. It's very important.
Yeah.
Pulling back on them. This I could go on and on and on about this horse thing.
I know you can.
Because
love it.
You know, saddle horses for people to pleasure ride. You got to use your legs on them and the reins and get them so that they bend and turn really without hardly any pressure, less than 4 pounds of pressure. Well, then when I ride race horses, train them to start them for the jockeys to ride, you got to pull into the bit and take a crossover on them because race horses run into the bit. They're not like saddle horses at all. That's their balance, but they keep their head tucked in so they can see, but they're still yet, you got a hold of them.
Sure.
And
so,
until you learn how to do that and the pressure to do,
I didn't know how.
Just stay off a thoroughbred horse or a quarter horse racehorse.
Yeah, so that was fun.
Yeah, it is, and it's educational.
So the kids that you're teaching, you know, 'cause you're talking about all the kids, and I think that's awesome, by the way. That's just amazing. Do they know who Bob Gimlin is? I mean, do they know that you're, you know, the guy who was there when Patty was filmed?
No. Some of them probably never even recognize the fact because we don't ever talk about Sasquatch or anything like that unless they ask me. If someone asks me, then I go ahead and tell them what they want to know. And most of them don't even, probably never even heard the name Sasquatch of these kids, you know.
Right.
Some of them are very religious and maybe they don't understand the Sasquatch phenomenon. And so, you know, I take them as they come, and the adults the same way. A few of the adults know about my experiences with Sasquatch, but it's never brought up because there's so many other issues to deal with.
Sure.
You know, so many, and a limited amount of time also.
Sure.
Because I don't have time to go, I only do that on Saturdays. Because I work on my little place out there with the horses and the tractor, and then we give rides to the kids. It snowed a lot last year, so we got the sleighs out and give sleigh rides. We ended up giving 500 units of people sleigh rides, adults and kids. And then this year we had to take the runners off. We had no snow, so we put the wheels back on. We give wagon rides, and we ended up giving 400 wagon rides to adults and children 2 weeks ago.
That's awesome.
And then I'll be doing it again in April, one time, wagon rides, and that'll be strictly for the kids. The kid, then we're going to require the kid to be able to get on the wagon by itself with some assistance, because we got assistance there to help with off and on.
Sure.
And so, therefore, because if we also invite the adults to go, then the horses get pretty tired pretty quick. And a lot of people don't understand what limits a horse will have to haul the wagon, move the wagons around with a load on them.
Right.
So the horses are tired, and we stop the horses, and they'll say, "When are you going to start them rides up again?" Well, pretty quick as the horses get a drink of water and rest 15 minutes. Well, we've traveled along. Some people are really impatient and you're not very polite about things. They'll say, "Well, we've been waiting an hour to get a ride, and we want to get a ride." Well, okay. I'll start them up again in 15 minutes. Well, 15 minutes? We want to get a ride now. Well, the horses are tired. Look at the sweat running off them. Look how they're breathing. And I say it can't be done. Now,
Right.
if you can't wait, then catch us next time we give rice.
Right.
You know, because I'm always polite and friendly to them. Because see, I work with the Agriculture Museum down there in a place called Union Gap, and the Agriculture Museum likes to have people come around and look at all of the equipment that's in the place that used to be used on the farms. Mm-hmm. And then see, I work down there working on wagons and buggies and plows and different pieces of equipment that was used back when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Of course, I worked in the fields with horses when I was very young. I worked a lot of time. I was in my early teens. I worked with teams of horses and singles and everything. But it's a knowledge that I'm trying to pass on to the people that have the interest in driving horses.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And
I hope I'm successful. Up till now, I've been pretty successful.
I'm sure you'll continue to be, and which is actually so when you go out, right, and you're at home, and you know you're just old Bob, as you called yourself, just old Bob.
Just old Bob. People call me up for information on riding horses and driving horses, or even health issues.
Sure.
I'm not a veterinarian, but I did all my vet work for years, or not all of it, but I have to have the vets come in sometimes.
Sure.
Because I don't have the name to get some of the drugs that need to be used.
Right.
So people will call me frequently and say, Bob, my horse is doing this. I'll say, well, tell me everything it's doing. If it's colicking, you need to do this, or you need to do that. Or if it's got a cut, you know, if I can't get there and help you sew it up, then if it's that bad, if it's bleeding, stop the bleed. Just do like you would a human being that's injured.
Right.
Same thing.
Good deal. So when you go out and you go to the grocery store or the bank or just wherever, do people ever come up to you and say, "Are you Bob Gimlin?"
Occasionally they do.
So,
and then they'll say, "Can I get a picture with you?" If they do, or an autograph. And I say, "Sure, you bet. What do you got there?" "Well, we got a napkin off the table. Would you sign that?" "Well, sure, I'll sign that." Or they break out something, piece of paper, and I sign it, and then I say, "Thank you for stopping me and talking to me, because I'm glad you're interested in the same subject that I am."
That's awesome.
And yeah, I don't have it a lot, but I do have it quite frequently.
It happens to me about once a day.
Yeah.
Kidding. It never happens to me.
Yeah.
Actually, it did happen once. Actually, one time it did, which is funny. Anyway, we won't go. Anyway, so tell me a story about when you were surprised. I'm sure this was years ago, but tell me a story about when you were surprised that someone recognized you. You know?
Well, I was at a restaurant. We were sitting there I had company with me, and I got up to go pay. And of all things, a big, tall, beautiful blonde and her husband or her boyfriend looked at me and she said, "Are you Bob Gimlin?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." She said, "Oh, I've seen you on television." She said, "I recognize you from your voice, and you sitting there eating. We were just," and she said, "I didn't want to eavesdrop on you," but she said, "When you got up to come here and pay, I felt comfortable by asking you." And her boyfriend, or whatever he was, he kept looking at me, you know, and I said, "Hey, I'm just Bob." And she said, "God, this is incredible to be able to run into you at a restaurant,
right,
in Washington." She said, "We're from Kansas or somewhere, I can't remember." And this happens once in a while, not a lot,
sure,
and it isn't always a beautiful blonde either.
we can't always be that lucky, Bob.
Oh, no, but that was a lucky day for me.
Yeah.
And I told her so.
Now, before I came here today, I asked a few people if they had any questions that maybe I could ask some questions that they had.
Sure.
And Jimmy Blanton of Harlan, Kentucky, had a great question for you.
Okay, Jimmy, whatever.
He asked, how many states would you say you've researched in, and which state did you enjoy the most?
Well, Ed, I've researched in Canada, of course, and Washington a lot, California some, and a little bit over in Montana, and quite a little bit in Oregon, and
of course California.
And California, yeah, California. So I've covered as many. See, what I do is if somebody says they've had a sighting in the area or good footprints, if I've got the time, I try to go there and check everything out. And so while I'm in that area, then I also do as much research as I possibly can to get more evidence. And I haven't done anything much this year, or last fall I did went out a few, because there's a place up in Washington at a lake, a fairly nice lake, a reservoir for irrigation called Bumping Lake. And there's been lots of evidence in the past up there, and there's been quite a few sightings in there. And in fact, I've had some experience there with them right close to me. And so that's one of my favorite places to go. I used to like to go over on the Olympic Peninsula with the groups of people that would invite me to come over, but I don't do well when it rains every day. And of course, I'm out in the rain a lot with rain gear, but you can't concentrate on tracks, and the rain makes enough noise on the Olympic Peninsula that you can't hear that good. So my favorite place is up around Wenatchee, Washington, and then of course down in Bluff Creek, California when I was down there.
Sure.
And then over in Idaho some, and then in the Blue Mountain areas, and Washington has always been one of my favorite places to go, because I like the rough country and the mountains anyway. I like the timber and the mountains and the woods, and to go camping in and then do field research at the same time. So thank you for asking me that. I appreciate that, and I know you're from a long ways from where I'm talking about, but I never did get on the East Coast and the Carolinas, and I never got down in the South. I was down in Texas a few times, and I went out with one guy, I wish I could come up with his name, Moore. Okay, I may be wrong, a little bit off there, but that's been quite a few years.
Sure.
I think his name was Chester Moore. So I was able to go out, I was able to go out just a short time with he and a lady that used to work with him a lot. And we just did a short trip around out through Texas there. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just one evening and maybe, and it was later into the night before we got through. And so I don't get an opportunity to go out as much as I'd like, because I got so much to do with the horses and the youth and the people in there. Then I've got a little piece of property there that I have to take care of, and I put in a garden every year, and I got a raspberry patch, and I've got lots of things to do all the time. And then I mow the neighbors' fields for them with my tractor and my mower, and then of course there's hay to haul and all that stuff for the horses.
Just old Bob.
Yeah, just old Bob. and I don't. I'm no different from the next guy that puts his pants on one leg at a time.
Right.
That's just me. And I appreciate all the people that I meet and care for a lot and get an opportunity to visit with. But I'm still just Bob,
Right.
I'm nothing special. I'm just put my pants on one leg at a time.
Sure.
And if it's the ladies, I put my shoes on one foot at a time. You see, Ed, I don't want to ever leave the ladies out.
I understand.
Because there's some very, very special women out there.
There really are. In fact, that reminds me, and I'm sure she's going to be watching, Arla Collette told me to tell you hello.
Oh, well, thank you. Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Arla is a sweetheart. We
Hey,
all love Arla.
I'm in love with Arla.
Are you kidding me, man? I told her yesterday that how was it I put it? Oh, I said, because I saw a video where she was singing to you.
Yeah, she sings to me. She sings like two canaries, and even better than that. That Arla, I'll tell you what, if I was a single man and wasn't married, I'd just scoop her up and carry her away. I'm just teasing it.
I know.
Arla is really special.
She is. She really is. She's a dear friend of mine. In fact, I'm going to be seeing her in April, as a matter of fact.
Are you? Well,
yeah,
just give her a big old hug and say, that's a bear hug from Bob.
I will. Arla, it's coming. It's coming.
Get ready, honey. Ed's going to get you.
All right. So, Bob, you last time we talked,
Uh-huh.
you said something to me that I found just amazing. You said one of your friends back in the past was Evil Knievel.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about Evil. I mean, tell me about this guy. I mean, holy
Well,
cow.
when we were good friends, he was not Evil Knievel yet. He was Bob Knievel. And we raced on some of the little dirt tracks because he worked for a guy named Don Pomeroy down in Sunnyside, Washington. And one time Bob Knievel come to me and he said, you know, you're kind of a wild one, but he's quite a bit younger than me, you guys. And this guy was an incredible bike rider. I mean, he could do things with bike that a lot of guys wish they could do.
Right.
And me one of them. And so, but he said, Bob, he said, I've got connections. He said, let's go daredevil. And I said, well, Bob, there's a guy in Yakima by the name of Bob Keefe, and he's doing that, and I'm loaning him money to survive on. And I said, you know, but I'm married and I got 4 children. I just can't do it because I said, it'd just be my luck to get a broken neck and paralyzed or something with 4 little kids. And so the next thing I know, he's Bob Knievel making more money in one time than I'm making in 2 years. And of course, I never did really regret not going with him.
Right.
But he wouldn't have been the same if I'd have been with him. He went on his own, become Evil Knievel, and was one of the greatest bike riders ever.
Oh my gosh.
And could do things that the average guy wouldn't have enough nerve to do to start with. And I know I've met a lot of guys that had a lot of nerve. But Bob, Evil Knievel, I'll call him Evil Knievel, because that's what he went by after he took that name on.
Sure.
And this guy, I'll tell you what, even little Robbie, his son, when he was just a little guy, about 5 or 6 years old, him and some of those other little guys had their little motorcycles, little wheels about that big, and they'd put some planks out there and some cement blocks, and they'd run up there and they'd jump that. And of course, we never thought anything about it, except Bobby was a gritty little guy,
right.
even like his dad. But I'm not ever going to sell Bobby short.
Right.
But I don't think he had quite that zingo or the careless. I'm not going to call it carelessness. Bob Knievel was confident in everything he did. Whether we thought it was crazy or reckless, he was still confident and he knew what he could do. And this guy was so incredible. It was just unreal, you know, physically strong.
Sure. And you think about what he did. And back in those days, the bikes were heavier.
Oh, a lot heavier.
And he's jumping things that people can't jump today with half the weight.
I know.
You know, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I don't know.
And more power.
Yeah.
And more power and a lot less weight. But you know, Bob Knievel, if he'd say, I'm going to do it, there would be nothing to stop him from doing it or starting to do it, even if he didn't get it, even if he got busted up on the end of it. You know, he was the only guy I ever met that had that much grit. Mm-hmm. He just had grit. And I always envied him. I thought I had a lot of grit, but I didn't even have a drop in the bucket compared to him.
Well, earlier you were telling me, and I don't mean to cut you off, sorry. Earlier you were telling me that when I was talking about coming into Yakima, and you mentioned a bridge, and you said, you know, back in the day, I was hanging up there with one arm with my legs tied around, strapping steel. That's pretty gritty, Bob.
Well, yeah, because the fall was 360 feet to the bottom.
Right.
At the canyon down there. Ed knows how steep the canyon is.
Yeah.
And it's called the Fred Redmond Bridge across the Umtanum Canyon. And I was working with some Native Americans, and they only hired Native American people to do that because Native Americans supposedly, I never was afraid of height, of any height,
sure.
You know. But anyway, the reason what Ed just got through saying was we were tying in a round circle, a 6-foot circle, down 30 feet into the earth as one of the abutments that go down from the bridge to the arch. And the guys I was working with tying steel, they were all taller than me. And so there was places there where you had to hook your toe in and one arm and reach through and tie like that. And if you've ever tied steel, you know what it is. You got a belt right here, you got a roll here with a wire in it, and you grab that wire with your pliers and you run it through and around the other side and twist it. And just twist it one time. And that's tying the iron, that's tying the upright to the rounds, the ones that we use to go around. Mm-hmm. So that when they poured the cement, it kept the steel was in the cement. And you used all different sizes of rebar. And so some of it was heavy, like 1.5 inches,
right,
or 2 inches, or 2.5. 20 feet long, it was heavy.
Yeah.
So you had to wear some kind of pads over your shoulders.
Sure.
Pretty soon you didn't have nothing but the bones sticking out.
Right.
And so I wore football pads
Good idea.
on my shoulders to carry that steel. And out on the bridge itself, there'd be like 3 of us carrying it, and it'd be the big stuff, the 2-inch stuff, 20 feet long. And so there was no safeties at all then. There was no such thing as
OSHA or
OSHA. Yeah. No, that was before all of that. And so if you made the wrong step with that over your shoulder, or if all 3 of us didn't walk together like soldiers, one guy would be gone, and all the weight would be on the other 2 guys.
Right.
So you was working as a team, always as a team. Mm-hmm. And it was good work. It was heavy, hard physical labor, but it paid good.
Sure.
And my thought then was to make good money because I had a family.
Right.
And so I had a day job and a night job. And my day job was tying steel with the crew, and my night job was tending bar. Right. And that's when I rested, tending bar.
Sure.
Not really, I'd work my tail off. But I always got through at 2 o'clock and closed down at 2, closing time.
Right.
And then back home and sleep a few hours, and back up at 6 o'clock and go to work tying steel.
And the amazing thing about this is, if you haven't met Bob, and I know most of you out there have, because Bob's been everywhere. I mean, he's awesome. He's not a really big guy.
No.
He's kind of tiny. I mean, I love him, but he's kind of tiny. And can you imagine, the grit it would take to carry steel?
Well, I was quite a bit bigger then, Ed. As you get older, you shrink down. And as many injuries I have, I'm just exactly now 3.5 inches shorter than I was when I was 18 years old and went into the service. And of course I was a lot huskier, muscular and stuff. Sure. This was about 30 pounds heavier than I am at this point in time.
Sure,
see.
sure.
And it was all muscle, because I grew up on the farms lifting and bales of hay and potato sacks and whatever there was out there to lift. And people might not even understand scying the ditches off the weeds alongside the irrigation ditches with them big scythes. And being as I was ambidextrous, I'd scythe right-handed for a while, then I'd go on the other side and scythe left-handed. So when I was good because I could use either hand.
Right.
And it really came in handy when I was boxing.
Sure. Yeah, that was something else I was going to get to.
Oh.
Well, you're giving everything away, Bob.
I'm sorry, Ed.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
But okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ed. And,
so, okay, and you're right. Being an ambidextrous and doing anything is an advantage.
Yeah, because any job that I took on for a job, they'd say, well, can you work with your left hand? Well, yeah, I can, whatever. It don't matter to me.
Right.
Pulling kents off the green chain, I did that, see, and to reach up and grab them with your left hand, and then guide them with your right hand if you're pulling them down for resaw and stuff. It helps a lot.
Sure.
Because there's another guy on the other side, and if you change off with him, See,
You stay a little
you
fresher.
could, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then a day, and we worked 10 hours in the sawmills that way, and and if you traded off about every hour and a half or hour, then you weren't just one arm wasn't that much longer than the other one at night.
So let this be a lesson. If you want to have a long, productive life like Bob has, the secret is being ambidextrous.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, and have a will to work hard.
There you go.
I never had to look for a job ever. I always, if I was out of a job, I'd go say, "Hey, you need somebody?" They'd say, "Come on, Bob, we got to work for you." And so I never was unemployed.
It's good.
Unless I was busted up so bad
Right.
in the legs and arms that I couldn't work. See, and of course that happened once in a while, riding bronchi horses and.
Sure.
But I rode horses with one arm, and I'm not talking about just riding horses. I'm talking about starting horses. Starting them starts them when they haven't been ridden, and I'd have my buddies come and saddle 6 head for me in the morning because it was hard. My right arm was in a solid glass cast from injuries, and so I could ride and unsaddle with my left hand, and. I kept on riding colts. I didn't have money coming in, so I had to do something. So I rode colts. And my doctor said, this cast was so dirty, looked like it had been rolled in the mud. And he said, Bob, what do you do to get that dirty like that? And I said, I'm riding colts. And he said, you're what? I said, well, I'm starting colts. And he said, no. Tell me again what you're doing. I said, I'm starting colts. 2- and 3-year-old horses for people. Most of these were track horses, so they were going to go to the track. So I didn't have to put legs into them much, or
Right.
didn't have to put a rein on them. In fact, if I did, them jockeys would say some damn cowboy's been riding this horse. But anyway, folks, if you gotta get biscuits on the table, you got to do it however you can, and if one arm is tied up in a glass cast, you got to do it. And
Got to use the other arm.
And so I just kept on doing it, And I'm not a guy to give up on much of anything. Well, my dad taught me that when I was a little kid. He said it's pretty easy just to quit and say it's too tough for you, but he said if you really want to prove that you're capable of doing things, he said you don't give up. If you got a broken leg, you got a broken arm, you work anyway. My dad did, so I did too.
Sure.
All
right. You brought it up, so now we'll go ahead and get to that real quick, and then we're almost done, by the way. But
okay.
Boxing. I heard you were a boxer.
Well, yes, I was.
What?
Yeah, I like boxing. I started out boxing with my brothers and the neighbors when I was like 4 and 5 years old. So, and I grew up, and Joe Louis was the heavyweight champion, and I'd get on that radio, and when I was a youth, and I'd listen to the fights that Joe Louis put on, and he was my hero.
Sure.
Joe Louis was my hero. He'd fight anybody and everybody. He didn't care what color they were, what weight they were, anything else. So I always wanted to be like Joe Louis. I wasn't dark enough in skin, but anyway, there's a lot of things we had in common. And so therefore I started out young, and they had festivals all around in our area, hop festivals, cherry festivals, beet festivals, harvest festivals. And when I was a young teenager, I'd sign up to fight in those. And they put on what they call smokers, folks. And the smoker thing comes from way back, Jack Dempsey and all the old timers. But they put them on, they call them smokers. So anybody that wanted to fight would sign up, and then they'd try to match you for your age and weight, mostly your weight, because I was boxing guys 10 years older than me at 15 even, but mostly my weight, because I was in great physical condition from working on the farm all the time. And so if I couldn't knock them out in the first or second round, I'd figure out, what was holding them up, because I had good, powerful shoulders, and I had a strong right cross and a really good left jab. So
That's a pretty good combination.
that made a real good combination, because if I jab them good and then hook them or just throw a cross on them, you know, they went down pretty good.
Sure.
It seemed like it. And so, and I boxed all the neighbor kids, but I had to wear 16 ounces when I did that, because you didn't want to knock your brother out or the neighbor kid, because then they wouldn't spar with you
Well, you
anymore.
kind of do.
They'd quit. They say, I don't want to. He knocked me down. So when you get in the ring, you wear 14-ounce gloves. See, at my weight, I was a welterweight at that time, 150 pounds, and you had to wear, you go with 14 ounces. Well, that 2 ounces difference makes a whopping big difference. Anybody that's been out there boxes knows.
Sure.
Because you can knock a guy out quicker with a 14 ounce than you can a pillow. I call the 16 ounces pillows. But anyway, yes, I did quite well in the service. I boxed in the service, and I boxed, and I was an all-Navy welterweight champion, and boxed. Then I boxed different people in the other services, and did quite well even with that, because I was all-service champion against Army and the Air Force and Coast Guard.
Sure.
And so, but I trained hard. I trained all the time. I run. I used to run 20 miles every morning. I'd get up, drink my orange juice, and maybe eat a couple of yogurt or something, and then I'd run my 20 miles. Then I'd come back and eat my breakfast. And then sometimes I'd rest for a couple hours, and then I'd go down to the gym and I start working on the bags, the speed bag and then the big heavy bag, see, and get somebody to hold the heavy bag and work on that. And then I'd have them hit me with a medicine ball. I'd lay down on the floor, and I'd have them, if you know what a medicine ball is, big old heavy ball, I'd have them put it over their head and slam me down on the belly with it until, you know, I'd say, well, that's enough, you know, maybe 15, 20 times. And I'd do 100 push-ups. At that time, I could do push-ups, chin-ups with one arm and then the other arm. And so I might do 100 push-ups with one arm and 100 with this arm, or I'd do 50 and 50. And the same way with chin-ups, you know, I'd get a hold of something that I could reach around, a pipe or anything. I did a lot of them on orchard limbs when we had orchard trees and cherry trees.
Sure.
I did lots of chin-ups right out there and on my yard, you know. So I was training all the time. I never quit training. And it helped me so many times.
Sure.
And then in 1952, I was a passenger in a car going from one duty station to the other, and he was exceeding the speed limit and didn't negotiate the road and went off the highway, and hit a power pole and killed a kid next to me. The motor come right back on both of us.
Oh my gosh.
And I lived because I was in great physical condition, but I ended up 2 years in the hospital.
Wow.
And so that ended my boxing, because I already had been approached to turn pro in California, and I was just waiting for my tour of duty for the service, and they were also waiting for it. And so then I was still in the service. I got hurt, and so that ended my boxing career. But I went on and trained boxers.
Right.
That's done quite well.
Good.
You know.
Good.
Anyway.
You know how you can tell that I was never a boxer?
Your nose is straight.
Because I'm still pretty.
And you can tell I was a boxer, because look at me. You and Russell both weren't boxers. But you guys are pretty.
Russell pretty? Now, Bob, I'm going to ask you one more question real quick, and this might take a minute, so I want to. And this is actually an interesting thing, and I hope you're aware of this. There's Claudia Ackley in Southern California is suing the state of California, the Fish and Wildlife, for derelict of duty because they don't investigate Bigfoot when there's a sighting. All right? So the idea of that is to say, look, when someone has a sighting and you just come in and say, well, it was a bear, and then leave, you're not doing your job.
That's
you know?
Right.
So I just want to get your opinion. I mean, this is, in my opinion, I mean, this is a great idea. I think it's a great thing. I hope she wins. I think she will. And let me point out real quick, because I know this is another thing that's just like your situation. Yeah. People are getting all confused on. She is not suing to prove Bigfoot is real. She is simply saying that based on the Fish and Wildlife in California, based on their own mission statement, their job is to protect all the wildlife and those who inhabit it, and keep everybody, including the general public, safe.
Yeah.
If there's someone walking down a trail and they see a Sasquatch, which has happened many, many times,
yes,
that person is now afraid of the woods. They're scared. So they're not doing their job in protecting that person, in my opinion. So what do you think about that? I mean, do you think it's a good thing?
Well, yes, in a way. That's a double-edged sword there, because if they do their regular job, and then see, there hasn't been any proof that the Sasquatch are harmful to people. I mean, I'm talking about concrete proof.
Of course.
There's stories,
but
they've asked people to move out of their area, and they've thrown things down to scare them out.
Sure.
And I think there's probably one or two cases in history that they actually did harm human beings, and nobody really knows why they did that. So until we can get to know what the Sasquatch are really doing out there, I think that she's doing her regular job, and she'd be going a little bit beyond what's required of her to make a really good go in and make statements about everything. I think that she probably should have said there was something out there that I didn't understand, or something like that could have possibly, and it appeared to me like it was a Sasquatch, but
she did.
Well, then I don't think they'd have rounds to terminate her job.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I think I may have misrepresented. My point is, she doesn't work for Fish and Wildlife.
Oh.
She is suing Fish and Wildlife.
Oh, she's suing Fish and Wildlife
for derelict of duty. She actually had a sighting, which is on film.
Yeah.
And not as good as Patty, but she had a sighting that was on film.
Well. Yeah.
And she reported it. They came and they said it's a bear, and they basically left.
Oh.
Never investigated.
Okay.
So now people are scared of the woods. Her daughter has nightmares, and I think it's a good case.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really do think it's a good case, because there's so much there that we don't understand about the Sasquatch, you see, yet. And I'm strongly. Ed, I never realized so many people have experiences that never talk about it because they're afraid to talk about it.
Sure.
And it's come so far in 50 years, in my opinion, and I'm proud of how far it's come.
Absolutely.
Because I took an awful lot of ridicule.
Oh, I remember you telling me it was horrible. You and your wife, your family,
everybody, and even some of my own family was kind of, they weren't real bad, but they were, Bob, hey. Then they called it something else, They couldn't even pronounce Sasquatch correctly.
Right.
I've had people call them Siskiyous and Succotashes and the craziest names,
Yeah.
The name Bigfoot, of course, came out of California by Jerry Crew. And the Forest Service people that was building roads and stuff. That's where the name Bigfoot came from. So, but the Bigfoot name has followed it right on through.
Sure.
And I don't know, Ed, if you even understand this. A guy from Olympia called me 3 or 4 nights ago and said, Bob, we're trying to put Bigfoot on the license plate. What do you think about that? I said, well, I'm not a politician, but I said, if you get it on there, I'll be the first one to buy a plate.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'd like to see it happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to see a Bigfoot put on because Washington is have a lot of evidence. Of Bigfoot,
Oh yeah.
A lot of evidence.
Sure.
And so, to me, put it on there. They said they wanted a state emblem. I said, whoa, I'd love it
Sure.
if they make it a state emblem. Yeah,
Sure.
I'd love it if they make it a lot of states emblem, but it probably never.
Right.
It probably will never happen.
Of course.
But Ed, that's I've been so successful to meet guys like you and Russ and hundreds of them, and even Mark DeWart and Tom Yamron
Sure.
and Bobo and
Bobo,
all of them. I just appreciate meeting all the people. And little Harriet down there in Nebraska, I just love her because she's invited Russ and I to come down there, see, in a week or so.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be awesome.
And this is going to be really good to go down there because I've never been in that part of Nebraska.
Sure.
And so I was in the service with a lot of the guys from Nebraska, but they're probably all gone now,
Right.
Yeah, they weren't as ornery as me.
Well, Bob, you are a raspy fella. I'll tell you, you're a raspy fella.
Well, I've been through a lot, Ed.
So, okay. So you would support a court case like that?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I would.
Good deal.
I definitely would. And as much as I could,
Of course.
I don't know how much. I know I go to the conferences and I'm able to meet lots of people, but that's a small percentage of a population that might be somewhat negative to things.
There are some. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the people that say to me, well, how could they exist? I've been in the woods and I never saw one. I said, probably wasn't looking for one.
Right?
Yeah, and because, I came up with the same statement to Roger when he first showed me the big plaster cast and said, Bob, this is a Bigfoot. I said, well, sure enough is. and he said, you ever see a track out there like that? Wasn't looking for one. I was looking for game.
Sure.
I was a hunter, deer, elk, bear, cougar.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for anything else, and so if you're looking for something, you might find it.
Well, I used to have a cast. Russ actually has it now, but I used to have a cast. It was I think it was 22 inches long, and it was actually cast by Roger Patterson a year before Patty was before the video of Patty, right? And I think it was Onion Mountain, I believe, is what I heard.
Yeah, Roger knew about that country
Yeah.
because see, Tom Slick, the millionaire, Texas millionaire,
Sure.
Slick Airways, he had an expedition in there with a group of people in the mid '50s, and they were, from what I've talked to some of them guys, or most all of them dead now, Renee Duhan and John Green,
Sure.
and they felt that they were pretty close to some really, really good evidence and maybe even a picture. And it was in the same area where Roger and I went. And that's why Roger wanted to go down there
Sure.
again, see. It's because the expedition, the Slick expedition was in there, but they ran out of money when Tom Slick had a crash in one of his own planes and killed him. So there was no more funds coming in.
Sure.
So they all left. But anyway, folks, we've come so far, and I have to brag just a little bit. And I have people tell me it's because of seeing the Patterson Gimlin film when I was small that I put so much field research into it, and I've been able to cite things and find tracks and do this. So I feel like I helped in that respect with the Patterson Gimlin film, plus helped other people realize that there's something out there, and they go do field research and they find things. And so I feel in the 50 years that Roger and I got that film footage in October, we've come a long ways, a long ways. And people that didn't want to talk about things have come out and talked about it, and that was a good thing, that they didn't feel ashamed to talk about something that nobody really could understand quite.
That's right.
And of course we got a long ways to go. If we're going on a scale, we got off the ground, but we got a long ways to
Absolutely.
go.
And can I extend on that just a second?
Yes.
I think that's a great point. And I think the problem we're having now is when someone has a difference of opinion and they kind of veer off that track, then it's okay. You know, it's okay to have a difference of opinion.
Yes.
But then you get over here and this person says, well, I'm right. I know I'm right. And then this person comes over this way and they're like, no, I'm right. I'm right. Then this one forks off. You end up with this tree full of different opinions and different ideas. And everybody seems to be so far apart now that it's hard to take the subject serious.
Yeah,
you know?
and they're so determined to voice what they think is right.
Amen.
If they just give a little each way and say, let's go down the middle here and see what we can do with this.
Sure.
That's what I'd like to see.
Well, let's be honest. When you stop being open-minded.
That's the word
Yes.
right there, Ed.
When you stop being open-minded, you're no longer researching. Now you're working on a hypothesis.
That's
okay?
right.
And there's a difference.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, because what you said was exactly right. And well, Bob, listen.
That's just the way I feel, Ed. Thank you for doing this with you, Ed. This
Bob,
has been a pleasure.
It's been, again, my pleasure. And you gave me, I know we had an opportunity to do this back in a couple years ago.
Yeah.
In Oregon.
Yeah.
And you've given me an opportunity to do it again. Bob, you are literally, you're an icon in the genre. And I'm gonna finish with this, because it was something you said to me during that interview, and I'll never forget it. I'll remember it forever. You said, if I can be half the man that my dogs think I am, then I'm going to be all right.
I still say that, Ed.
And I'm going to tell you again, like I told you last time, Bob, you are twice the man your dogs think you are. I love you to death, and I value every opportunity I get to talk to you and see you. You're amazing.
Ed.
All right?
Thank you so much.
It's all right, man. I mean it. Guys, listen. I'm sitting here with Bob. Again, wow, my mind is blown. Listen, if you want to meet me, you want to see me, I'm going to be in Harlan, Kentucky, Harlan County, at the Harlan CryptoCon, July 21st. Make sure you go down there. I'm going to be speaking down there. I'm going to MC the event, as a matter of fact. We tried to get Bob there, but unfortunately someone had snagged you up on those dates, so we weren't able to get you. Maybe we'll get him there next year. We're going to try. But please come on down to that event. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be fun. Harlan, Kentucky. So make sure you're there.
Well, yes, folks, get on down there and talk to Ed. He's a great guy, and I'll tell you what, I consider him one of my best friends, and I love the man. I met him a few years ago, and I think about him even when I don't even get to see him. I think about him. Because, boy...
Oh, Bob, stop. Come on, stop.
No, well, I'll tell you what, folks, get down there and take a look at everything and listen to what Ed says. Because I know I can't go this year, but maybe next year. Maybes are easy to say, but I'm serious when I really say maybe, because I'm healthy, and I've got about I'm only 86 now, going on 87, and I'm going to slow down on my 100th birthday. So you can see I've got quite a little while to go.
Amazing. So, all right, guys. And with that, Bob, you want to say bye or anything else you want to say before we go?
Yeah, I want to say, hey, thank you guys for tolerating. I don't want to say tolerating it. Thank you for just listening to Ed and me. And I hope you enjoy it and appreciate it as much as we want you to, okay? And you have a good one, and have a great conference down there with Ed, because he'll make you won't go away unhappy, I'm sure. You'll go away saying, boy, I can't wait to see Ed again and hear what he's got to say.
All right, Bob. I'm gonna let you close it by just saying, and we're out. That's all you gotta say.
And we're out.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Bob, that was awesome, man.
Oh, Ed, we had fun.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now I've got I drank a little coffee, so I got to go pee. I don't want to say